All right, today we are getting into one of the most talked about and, frankly, most disturbing document dumps in a long, long time. This is a story that goes from private islands all the way to the highest levels of global power. So let's start with a place. I want you to picture a 7-story mansion. It's one of the biggest private homes in all of Manhattan, a place where you'd see presidents, princes, and billionaires all hanging out. But, behind those massive doors, this was not your average home. So the very first thing you'd see when you walked in? A doorway just covered in dozens of fake staring eyeballs. Yeah, a super bizarre, unsettling welcome mat for the world's most powerful people. And once you got inside, it just got weirder. There was a life-size sculpture of a bride hanging from a rope in the hall. A taxidermied tiger was just sitting in the office, right near a first edition of the novel Lolita. And in the middle of all this strangeness, you've got the global elite just eating, laughing, and making deals. But here's the secret they had no idea about. Hidden cameras. They were everywhere, in the bedrooms, in the bathrooms, recording every single move. This was, of course, the house of Jeffrey Epstein. Okay, so let's really dive into this because what used to be just whispers and speculation is now being dragged into the light. A huge release of court documents has just blown this story wide open, and we're seeing new names and even more disturbing details. And when I say huge, I mean it. We are talking about an absolutely staggering amount of information. Over 3 million pages of files have been released by the U.S. Justice Department. The sheer scale of it is almost impossible to wrap your head around. And buried in those millions of pages are names that have sent shockwaves all over the world. We're seeing mentions of Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi, industrialist Anil Ambani, Google co-founder Sergey Brin, and even tech CEO Elon Musk, whose name popped up after he was publicly pointing fingers at other people. So this leads to the big question, right? How? How did a college dropout, a guy who used to teach math to kids, build a network that included the most powerful people on the planet? Well, these documents suggest his real business wasn't finance. It was something way, way darker.
Listen to this. This quote is directly from a victim, Maria Farmer. She testified that Epstein had this media room with a wall of monitors, all showing live feeds from hidden cameras that were all over his mansion. And as she put it, all she could see was screen after screen of toilet, toilet, bed, bed.
And her testimony really supports what so many people have suspected was Epstein's real game. It seems like a simple 3-step playbook. First, you lure powerful people to your homes. Second, you secretly record them in illegal or, just really embarrassing situations. And third, you use that dirt as blackmail to get influence, access, and control. And this isn't just some wild theory. When the FBI raided Epstein's Manhattan mansion back in 2019, they found a hidden safe. And what was inside? CDs. Piles of them. Each one carefully labeled with the name of a young person, a plus sign, and then another name. So you can imagine how that alleged blackmail material gave Epstein a key to pretty much every corner of the global elite. These new files are painting a clearer picture of this massive web that stretches all the way from Buckingham Palace to Silicon Valley and even the White House. I mean, just take Bill Gates, for instance. Publicly, he said there was no business relationship or friendship. But the documents? They allege a totally different story. Multiple meetings with Epstein after he was already a convicted offender, a flight on his private jet, the Lolita Express in 2013, and even a draft email written by Epstein himself that contained unverified claims about Gates's personal life. And really, the list just goes on and on. You've got Prince Andrew, who was stripped of his royal titles over all this, industrialist Anil Ambani, who was apparently asking Epstein for help connecting with the Trump White House. Donald Trump's own name appears over 4,500 times. And then there's Elon Musk, who emailed asking what day/night will be the wildest party on your island. And the details we're seeing are incredibly specific. Documents show that Anil Ambani met Epstein at his Manhattan home on May 23, 2019. Now, why is that date important? It was the exact day India's election results were declared. And later that night, Epstein sent a message to Trump's strategist Steve Bannon that read, "Really interesting Modi meeting," and called Ambani his guy. So all of these bombshells, all these revelations, it all leads to the single most important question. With a scandal this massive, touching so many powerful people all over the world, what does justice even look like? Well, here's the answer so far. 1.
That's it. In a network that allegedly involved hundreds and hundreds of people, only one person, Epstein's accomplice Ghislaine Maxwell, is in jail.
And here is something that is absolutely critical to remember. We probably don't even have the full story yet. As of right now, only about 60% of the documents identified by the Department of Justice have actually been released. That means 40% of the files are still locked away, hidden from public view. So you have to ask, what's in those unreleased files? And why, after all this time and all the public outrage, are they still being kept secret? Who or what is being protected here? And that, of course, brings us to the final, haunting question that's hanging over this entire saga. Officially, Jeffrey Epstein died by suicide in his jail cell. But when you think about the secrets he held on some of the most powerful people on Earth, you're left to wonder, was it really suicide or was he silenced?